thanks again for joining. Katherine, I think you've got something to say about proactivity, and mostly, what does the dictionary say about this? I think that would be quite an interesting angle to look at.
I think so. And, this sort of came out of a conversation you and I had more generally, actually. And I think this theme really stuck out. So I thought, well, while we're talking about proactivity, we should probably start with what the definitions are. Just to get the context. And I found, and by the way, I've got a screen here, which is why I'm looking this way. I'm not just looking at Twitter while we're talking. So I have all my notes on my screen here. So I found 3 definitions. The first one from the Oxford Dictionary, which is controlling a situation by making things happen rather than waiting for things to happen and then reacting to them. I think the key thing is the controlling a situation. So being in control of something rather than not being in control. The second one I found from Lexico, which is a bit different. It says creating or controlling a situation rather than just responding to it after it has happened. And I said to you, Barbara, I really like the word creating in that. So there is a sense that in being proactive, you can almost start with nothing and create something rather than having something to be proactive with. And I think that's a very positive angle on that. And then the third one, the Cambridge definition, is taking action by causing change and not only reacting to change when it happens. So that one is very focused on change being the key element of proactivity, which I guess it is. So 3 kind of different definitions, actually, bit of controlling, bit of creating, a lot of focus on change. But hopefully that helps set the context for what we're going to be talking about today.
So when you look at your the employers that you work with and the sort of like requirements that they put together for BD and marketing roles, we often see we're looking for a proactive candidate, right? When you speak to them, what is the sort of proactivity that they look for? What does proactivity mean in their eyes? I'm not saying that would be the right definition or that's what we can all agree on is the right thing, right? But that's what this discussion is about today.
Well, obviously, it depends on the context of the role. So, if the strategic intent is to do things differently, then that's an obvious one, really. You need someone to create change and drive change. But consistently, clients are saying, I want to see candidates who've been able to think differently, to add value, to not only do the processes and manage the work well, but to come up with ideas, to put their hand up and say, well, I notice you're doing this way. Have you thought about doing it another way? And so some of that proactivity could come from the fact that they've got lots of experience, because if you've got experience in a number of different roles and in a number of different firms, then you're already coming with a mixture of experience that you can apply to a new firm. But it's not just that. It can be people who haven't really got much experience, but have just got a mindset of thinking about, how can I take a step back, look at what we're actually trying to achieve, so the end goal, and think, is this the right way to do it, or could we do it in a different way? So some of it's mindset and some of it's amassed experience.
And do you agree with their views?
The clients?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very contextual. I'm always looking for that evidence when I'm interviewing candidates, and there are some people who are on this call who know me well, and I will always ask, give me tangible examples of what you personally have achieved. And within that, I will often look for, okay, what have you done differently? Because if you think about it, it's a competitive market, and there are lots of people who've done BD and marketing in professional services. So how do you differentiate yourself? How do you position yourself to be a standout candidate for the next role? And part of that is, what have you done differently? How have you added value? And some of that is about being a bit more proactive and doing things a bit differently.
So could we say, listening to what you've just said, could we say that being proactive is also taking initiative? Do you think that's pretty similar, or is it just
Yeah,
a part of being proactive?
I,
Proactive
I,
would be to take initiative.
I think taking initiative is part of being proactive, definitely.
Okay, maybe we can open up the floor and ask people in this group, and please do raise your hand because we are quite a few people, so we're trying to manage this conversation as well. Anyone, anything to say? Like maybe there will be some people on this call who've actually recruited a few people within their teams. You know, what is it that you're looking for if this is what you do?
Hi, this is Justine. I don't know how to raise my hand in this context.
Okay, fine. Just, just go for it.
Sorry. Look, yeah, I do know Katherine. We've had a long knowledge of each other, and look, I'd have to say, in a work context for myself, the difference I find between just being creative or proactive is, I'd always make sure that proactivity was in line with what the business needs to achieve. I think I've definitely been in situations where maybe you're in my younger times, younger areas where I've just been super creative and put all this energy into showing everyone above me what I could do, but realistically, it didn't meet the business objectives. And so it's a bit of well, that's nice, but realistically, unless it comes down to meeting those business objectives, that's where you've got to start. And proactivity is just, I would actually probably even more boil it down to just a can-do attitude. People either have it or they don't. I think some people just will get up and try and solve a problem, or other people expect others to solve those problems. So I think it's really important that you frame your energies within meeting those business objectives.
That's really, really good point, Justine. And as we all know, there are some firms that say they want to change, but actually they don't always want to change, or not as much as they think they do. And that can be a big challenge. But I think proactivity doesn't have to be big. It can be really small, but effective as well. So, I was speaking to somebody last week who took herself off to do a course over the weekend of a particular piece of technology that she was just interested to find out if it would help her manage her projects better. And she did it off her own bat, loved it, brought it back to the organization, recommended that they implemented it, and they have done. And so, that's using her initiative, piece of technology, in it goes, and it's going to help really improve the efficiency of the team. That's
I think
just
it's a
one
really,
example.
I think that's a really good example. And I like the point that Justine made as well, because if I look at, for example, the people within my team as well, I do expect them to be proactive. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind is what are you assessed on? So what are your KPIs? And if there is nothing on your KPI list that is like supporting your proactivity, like going the extra mile, for example, and you're doing lots of different tasks outside of what you're supposed to do, which means that you won't actually achieve your KPIs, then the whole proactivity point has gone to waste, basically. Because I think we all need to agree that we need to make sure that we do the basics first. Whatever is required is what we need to do. And then I think we look at what can we do more? How can we excel? How can we stand out? And how do I create a position for myself within this competitive environment to make sure that I am I can do what I want to do for a very long time with this firm, or perhaps with another firm, and I can grow my career in that way. And also, I'd like to test something with everyone, but I'd like to get your views first, Katherine. But what I find, where a lot of the partners would come to us and say, we need a team that is really proactive. We need a team that will go out, spot opportunities, talk to people, build relationships. I dare to challenge that, because I think the relationship building should be with the partners who's supposed to be account managers as well. They're supposed to be key relationship partners as well. So they should be in charge of that piece of their work, because also the work will flow in through the relationships that they build, and that takes time, it takes effort. So how I feel that we can be proactive is not necessarily, yes, spotting opportunities would be good, of course, if you work for a specific sector, for example, and you can identify, there's a few events happening, this would be one for you. But when you come to, for example, looking at an event that you would like to suggest to your partners, rather than just saying, oh, there is this event, what do you think? I think you can be proactive by just already reaching out to the organizer, doing your own assessment, and you ask, and this is where I think proactivity comes in, is where you ask your questions like, why are we doing this? How are we doing this? When are we doing this? Who are we doing this for? What is our goal? And asking those strategic questions to make sure that you come up with a strategic plan so that you can present an idea in a proactive way. And it's easy for a partner to see the return on investment that this specific initiative may bring to them, where they can easily sign off on what you've suggested, implement the idea or the event or whatever it is that you try to organize, which is in a far more structured way, but also at the same time very proactive, if you ask me. But I'd like to be challenged on that. So what do you think, Katherine? Do you feel that's proactivity?
I will chat. Well, I'll partly challenge, or at least give some examples. So I've picked up, there's probably 2 points just to come back on. One is the client-facing aspect, and the other one is the asking questions. So from the client-facing aspect, some firms and some markets have got it right. There are BD professionals who are purely responsible for managing client relationships. Say they've got 3 or 4 key relationships that could be national, regional, global. I know there's some people on this call who actually do that. And they will be working very closely with the head of legal, the GC, the head of legal ops in the clients. And because they have the time and the inclination, they can ask questions and spend time with those people to identify other opportunities that maybe the lawyers don't have the time or the inclination to do. So in firms of a certain size where the structure allows that to happen, and the last time I spoke to BD Roundtable, we were talking about the challenge of doing everything and being a one-man band or one woman or man band or a small team. Where you've got the luxury of people doing client relationship management specifically, it can work really well. And I think BD can add significant value if they know the right people and they ask the right questions. Things like identifying technology or learning and development opportunities with a client. What you said is absolutely right, Barbara, around asking the right questions. And I feel like this is key to proactivity, is to know what to ask, when to ask. So rather than to receive a request or a bit of information, like as you said, let's do an event. We want to do it again this year. We've done it 3 years in a row. This is how we're going to do it. Is to think, okay, what questions can I ask to make sure that we really, really get the most out of this? And some of that can be confidence. And just having the confidence to ask questions of somebody who is deemed to be a lot more senior. And that's having confidence in your own reason for being there and your own capabilities. I think that's also a responsibility of the leader to kind of, like you said earlier, really sort of encourage your team to know what they can and can't do. So actually saying, if you're a senior manager on this call and you've got people reporting into you, actually telling them what good looks like, saying, you know what, when we go into this meeting tomorrow, I really want you to ask questions. I want you to, because that person might think that asking questions is a sign of weakness, but actually encouraging people to ask questions in front of senior stakeholders, whatever, can be very empowering, because that's again where some gems could come out which could lead to proactivity.
Yeah, very true. I think the only sort of downside of that, what we have faced as well, is that it comes across as if you push back and you're not willing to do it. So you're just questioning lots of things. But actually, and this is where we try to sort of like explain what it is that you try to do by asking questions, is to make sure that whatever opportunity we have in front of us, we are going to use it to the full extent possible.
Right.
And we're going to make sure that we do it in the right way, with the right tools, with the right people, etc., rather than just saying, okay, I want to do this event. Okay, fine, yes, let's do it. I think that's some sort of, that shows weakness on its own, if you ask me. I think whereas, and it needs a bit of encouragement, I agree. It needs a bit of, you have to be a little bit bold, I think, just to step up and say, and ask those questions. And again, you can explain it's not to work against them. It's actually to support them to make it even better than they had envisaged. And that's what everyone wants, right? Everyone wants it to be better.
Yeah, and just on that, Barbara, just a quick one. If you're involved in the conversations already from the start, so if proactively you have got involved in, okay, what are we going to try and achieve next year? And you're already very clear that you've agreed maybe 4 key priorities, it's then much easier to say, okay, so let's go back to our 4 key priorities that we agreed. How does this fit in? How do we make sure that that aligns with what we've agreed? So you've got some context that you've already set. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, very true. I agree. Let's open up the floor again, I would say. Perhaps there is anyone who would like to share an example of proactivity that they've seen within their teams, of something that you've done yourself that you think is working.